I'm back, baby! So, it is a new year, new me, all that. We're going to be trying something new today. Top 5 cars for under £5,000 that are rear-wheel drive and JDM. So we have Penny here to help us today. Are you going to rate these cars for me? Okay, she's gone quiet now. So we're going to be ranking these for R for reliability. How reliable is it? U for uniqueness. How unique? How many of them are there? S for sex appeal. How good looking is it? And stuff. T for tunability. How tunable are these cars and the engines in them? And Y for yen, because I couldn't think of anything that started with Y. And that makes Rusty! So let's crack on with the video. At number 1, now if we're going to be talking JDM, the first thing we're going to have to talk about is the MX5. So the MX5, what you're going to be able to afford for £5,000 is either a Mark 1, NA, Mark 2, MB, or an NC, Mark 3. The NA came with a 1.6 naturally aspirated engine making 114 horsepower. They later revised it to make like a 90 horsepower one, which we're not going to get into too much detail about right now. In 1994, they then brought out a 1.8 version, which made 128 brake horsepower. The NB came out, which is the Mark II. That one does not have pop-up headlights. Some people think it's slightly better looking. I agree. I like the funky headlights on the Mark 1, but I think the Mark 2 is a better looking car. In 1998 to 2000, a 1.6 and a 1.8 engine. And then in 2001, they had a facelift on it, which then gave you a VVT engine in a 1.8. The Mark 3, the NC, which is probably the least popular of all of the MX5s, came with a 1.8 Duratec engine. That's a Ford engine, or a 2-litre Duratec. Now, the 1.8 Duratec sucks, so buy the 2-litre. You don't even waste your money to buy the 2-litre. An NA Mark 1, you're going to be looking at around anywhere from something that's completely rotten and probably doesn't drive, and probably 1.6. £500 if you're lucky. I don't know where you'd find one. But anywhere from like £500 up to like £5,000 basically. They're the most sought after ones because everyone wants the whole 90s JDM pop-up headlight loveliness. The NB is probably the most cheaper, is probably the most budget friendly of all of them. So you could probably get a Mark II for about 500 to like £2,000, something like that, depending on the engine, not a 1.6. If you're looking for an NB, a lot cheaper, so you could probably pick one up for like 500 to like £2,500, like a good one, for probably like a facelift VVT engine, which is what you want to go for. The NCs are kind of like an odd one. They start from like £500, anywhere up to like £4,000. A lot better though, and will save you a lot of hassle. Personally, I like the NC. I think the shape's pretty cool. I've seen some cool stuff done with them. I would have one, but only if I could get rid of the Duratec, because I hate the Duratec. A lot of people don't like me saying that, but I hate the Duratec, and I'd probably K-swap it. Aftermarket support for these cars is insane. Because there's like 4 billion of them made, there is a lot of aftermarket support. Obviously, if you're going to be modifying an MX5, you're going to have to come to Boffy Racing. I'm going to put a little cone here. That's why that's there. The one-stop shop for MX5 parts. Check out the link below. Wow. If you're not in the UK and you want some MX5 bits, say you're in the United States, you want to see our friend Stefan over at Nat Motorsport. So weaknesses on these things. So the NA and MB, the 1.6 and 1.8s, they have a real bad issue with rods, so bending rods. Anything over 220 horsepower, really, you want to be putting a set of con rods in it. You could have stock pistons, but open up the ring gap. So if you're going to be turboing it. The NC has an issue with oil burning. So you need to check the oil. Otherwise, you're going to spin a bearing. They've got an issue with bearings going. It's due to the PCV system, which is quite odd on an NC. Again, I'm not going on to that now. Gearboxes, 5-speed on the Mark 1 and 2s is terrible. Well, it's not terrible. They will go anything. It's literally like potluck. So you could do 250, 300 horsepower on one. Or you could do like 200 horsepower and it will pull itself. Go for a 6-speed bolt straight on. Rust. It's a 90s JDM car, so it's going to be rusty. They're all rusty. MX5s, things to check. Mark 1 and Mark 2. Chassis rails, front chassis rails, rear seals, rear wheel arches, and just general rust. NC Mark 3, they have an issue with them rusting at the back. So subframes, above the subframes, they've got a multi-link suspension on the back, so the arms will rust up and seize up, and there's like 5 arms aside. They also go behind the bumper bar on the back. Make sure you check all them out. There is companies that do full restos, so they strip them down. Why would you buy an MX5? Now, why wouldn't you? Because there's so many of them. There's so many mods you can do to them. Turbo, supercharged, throttle bodies. The world is your oyster, which means you can pretty much do what you like with them. Drift it, track it, sprint it, road car. You can make all sorts of power levels. You can make anything from like 200 to 400 horsepower like Matt's car. You can do what you like. There's loads of stuff available. There's loads of kits available with you Boffy Racing. Why wouldn't you? It's a great car. It handles well. The chassis is amazing. The engines are reliable. So Penny, what do you think of the MX5? Reliability, 4 out of 5. Good engines, except for the rods. But if you're keeping it NA, they'll just pound on them. Make sure they're serviced. They're fine. 4 out of 5. Uniqueness. Now, I've been quite generous in giving them a 2 out of 5 because, as I say, there is like 400 billion MX5s. So they're not very unique. But what I would say is I gave them a 2 because they're getting rarer, because they're all rotting away. So they're getting rarer. So I feel that's pretty fair to give it a 2. Sex appeal, 3 out of 5. Only because they're more cutesy looking, kind of like halfway. You can make them look pretty hard, but 3 is a fair number. Tunability. Now, 5 out of 5. As I say, so good. So much stuff. So many good people to go to. 5 out of 5. And yen, so how much the cost? I've given it a 4 out of 5 because they're pretty reasonable. You can get a crap one for like stupidly cheap money if you don't mind doing some welding. And even a good one, so if you got like a good NA or an MB, you're still massively under budget. So that gives them 18 out of 25. So it would be incredibly biased of me not to include at number 2 the MR2. This photo is actually of my first MR2. I actually did a really good buyer's guide for the Mark II MR2 with car throttle a couple of years ago when I was at Fensport. So check the link out below. I'll stick it in the description so you can check that out. So the Toyota MR2 was available in the Mark 1, Mark 2 and Mark 3. You're not going to be able to get Mark 1 for less than £5,000. And if you can, it'll probably be like a Flintstones car. So I'm just going to disregard the Mark 1. Go straight into the Mark 2. So the SW20. So this came out with 3 engine types, here in the UK anyway. You had the 3S GE, which was a naturally aspirated 2-litre engine. You had the 3S GTE, which is the same as in GT4, which is a 2-litre turbo engine. And you had the 3S FE, which was another NA engine, but it made like, what, I don't even know, I had to write down 119 horsepower. The Mark III, the ZZW130, made a whopping 140 horsepower, and that is what I have outside. That we bought for £300. So the 3S GE came in basically 2 models. The Rev 1 and 2, which was 156 brake horsepower. Then the later Rev 3 Plus engine, which was 172 horsepower. The 3S GTE was the same. They had a Rev 1 and 2 and a Rev 3 Plus. The Rev 1 and 2 engine had a CT26 turbo on it. It made 220 horsepower. The Rev 3 Plus had a CT20 turbo and it made 245 horsepower or something like that. So you can pick up a Mark II 3SGE for like $1,000 to like $4,000 now. They did spike up, but I'm seeing them for like £1,500 really for probably a naked one. A turbo one, you're looking at probably $5,000 up. So it is the upper limit, but you could probably get one for like 4.5. A Mark III, they're being broken daily. So the amount on the road is going like this, which is putting the value up. So whereas you could get one for £500 up to like £1,000, they are starting at £1,000 for a bad one. So anywhere from £1,000 to £4,000 at the moment for a Mark III. So what's good about the MR2? The Mark II is probably the best looking out of all of them. Has pop-up headlights. It's mid-engined, rear-wheel drive. So that's what MR2 means. Mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, two-wheel drive, in case any of you didn't know that. So aftermarket support for these, well, places like Fensport can still do the parts. Obviously, I left. They specialise in 86s and GR Yaris's now. You can still buy parts. Tuners for them are very hard and far between in the UK. Not a lot of people really know much about the 3S, which means a lot of them blow up. Fensport, GT4 Play, places like that can still do genuine bits and aftermarket bits. Port for the Mark III. So the Mark III, they're getting broken on a daily basis at the moment. There was like hundreds of them, thousands of them on the road. They were super cheap. You could pick one up for like 500 quid. Now you're looking at least £1,500 for a Mark III, even a tatty one. They are literally, there's people that are probably breaking 2 or 3 a day. They are going to run out. The hard tops have basically disappeared in the country. If you want a hard top, it's like stupid money, like remortgage your house money. Weaknesses. Now the NAs, so the 3SGE engine, is practically bulletproof if you look after it. So literally just change your oil once a year. Bam, it's fine. Beat on it. 3SGTE, which is what is in the Celica. Obviously, it has the same flaws that the Celica has, where it cracks the block between 2 and 3. Cooling issues. The biggest thing with MR2s is cooling. General maintenance, thermostat, flush it through, heater matrices, fan relays. Big one, fan relays. Make sure the frickin' fan relay works. The amount of times I've had them in for mapping, they've gone down the road and come straight back because they're overheating, because you beat on them and then the fan's not working, or the rad's got no fins in it. Infuriating things. Side mounted intercooler in the back, so they get massive heat soak in the back. So a lot of people, you'd either fit a charge cooler or a boot mounted intercooler to them. Really seen a successful one of either. The 205 intercoolers, charge coolers on top seem to work pretty well. I've not seen a really good boot mounted intercooler though. The oil pumps are very archaic design, so I ended up porting nearly all of mine out to make better flow. You need to shim the pumps because they make next to nothing oil pressure when they're hot. They also suffer with ringlands, so if you push the boost too much past 1 bar, it's on the stock ECU, you're going to break a ringland because stock pistons are made of glass. And then you're going to get all sorts of scraping in the bores, oil burning issues. The stock ECU is very aggressive. It's got a very aggressive ignition map and a very rich fuel map. So once you go over stock boost levels, they are incredibly rich. So look forward to seeing like 10s in the AFR when you're on boost, and you'll probably smoke screen the road. ECU link, make a good plug-in, but I would always recommend going for an ECU Master. ECU Master Black, wire it in, hardwire them in. People are so scared of wiring, it doesn't take that long. I can really have one in, wired in, running in a couple of hours. That way, if you wreck the car or you buy another car and you want to take the ECU out, it's literally interchangeable, it's universal between them. And the Mark III suffers from oil burning, so the pre-cats on them break up. We've discussed this before. The pre-cats break up, they go back in the engine, and then you get loads of brah, and then you have oil burning issues. And the later facelift engines, they redesigned the pistons basically to try and help it as well. Another thing to check on Mark 1s is snap oversteer. The subframes on the Mark 1s are notorious for snap oversteer. They were called the Widowmaker back in the day. I used to have a Mark 1. a Mark II Rev 1, and I can agree, they are proper scary if you, you get it wrong on a roundabout. Rust. So the Mark IIs are a 90s JDM car, so they suffer from rust. Rear seals, so basically the T-tops where they drain behind you, there's foam in the seals, it absorbs all the water, and then they rot from the inside out. Rear seals, just general scabbiness underneath. The Mark IIIs are a noughties Toyota, so surface rust everywhere, really. Subframes on the back rust out. On the facelifts particularly, the strut towers, so I've had to do my strut tower, but they rust out underneath the plastics, so you don't really know about it. The front subframe from all the underbody plastics collects water, they go all scabby and start rusting through as well. Why to buy one? Why would you buy an MR2? Well, why not? They're freaking awesome. Look at them. They're mid-engine, they're rear-wheel drive, they look sick, they've got pop-up headlights, they are so tunable, they sound awesome with the turbo engine. The Mark III, awesome track car. There's not a reason not to buy one except for rust, if you're scared of rust, but that is a JDM problem, I'm afraid. I'm going to be really honest with you here. MR2 with a CT20 and an ECU is really, really good. People ruin them by putting 3582s on them and things like that, massive turbos. A stock engine CT20 with a good ECU is mega. They drive so well. So we're going to do the ratings now. Reliability, 4 out of 5, because if you get a 1ZZ or you get a 3SGE, pretty much bang on it. They might burn a little bit more, but bang on it. The 3S GTE, don't go crazy with boost, look after it, change the ECU, and it'll be fine. Uniqueness. Now, I've been pretty generous. I've given them a 4 out of 5. Mainly because there's not a lot of Mark IIs around anymore. And the Mark III is getting very rare. So I think that's pretty fair. Sex appeal. I have given it 3 out of 5. I say it's Penny. I'm just going to blame Penny. I think the Mark II is awesome. So it's probably one of the most timeless shapes and a massively underrated car. So that's basically where ratings come from. Because let's face it, the Mark III isn't the best looking car. I have one. I'm going to agree. I always hated them. I don't think they're a good looking car. You can make them good looking, I just don't think they're a good looking car. Tunability, 4 out of 5. Faux show, it's a Toyota. You can do loads to it. Bang on it. And yen, how much? So I put 3 out of 5, mainly because I think they're getting to the turbos are getting to a point where they are the correct money. And so are the other two, to be fair. But they're just getting, a Mark III is just getting silly money now. They are not too expensive and they're not too cheap. They're sort of in the middle ground at the moment, which is why I've given them a 3. So overall, 18 out of 25. So it's the same as an MX5. So we have a draw currently. In 3, the Mazda RX-8. Now I had to get a little bit of help, enlist the help of my good friend Pete to help me explain about them. So they came out in 2003 and ran to 2012. I'm not looking at my notes. It was a 1.3 Wankel rotary engine, had a 189 with a 5-speed and a 228 horsepower with a 6-speed. It's based on the MX5 NC chassis, so underneath it's basically an MX5. So price-wise for an RX-8, you looking anywhere between £500 for something that probably doesn't run, anywhere up to about £7,000 for like a good 230. You can get a cheap one if you're willing to work on it. Last time I looked at rebuild kits, they were like 1,500 quid just for like the apex seals and bits and pieces. So they are expensive to rebuild. Not a lot of people like working on them because they don't understand them. I always wanted one just to learn. I just wanted to take one apart and see how it worked, put it back together. You're looking probably £3,000 and £4,000 for like a good one. Because they're an MX5, they handle really well on track, so I am told. Pete used to have his as a track car. I think it was like 9 years or something ridiculous. So they do last. I'm told that the R3 is the one to go for. It has bucket seats. I'm not reading this. Nicer inside and out. And apparently the engine is slightly better. I don't know what that means. Aftermarket support for these things, there's not really anyone or very few specialists, especially in the UK, that deal with rotaries. We don't have Rob Darm over here, so you know. Weaknesses. Yeah. It's a rotary, so apex seals. So they're designed to burn like 1/4 of a litre, like 1,000 miles. Top it up probably every 2 times you fill the tank up. Because of rotary, the miles per gallon are terrible. I might probably not say I'm probably going to get shouted at by people now. But it's not good. Pete's quote, And I quote, I'm going to read this, hang on. "The weak point is obviously engine, but once rebuilt, they last. Basically, they just work until they don't." Quoted by Pete. Hot start issues, apex seals. I'm not going to go into apex seals. I'll probably do a really cool video on rotaries, actually. I really enjoy rotaries. They're pretty cool. We bought one, long story. Anyway, one of the things that really disappointed me about it is, as a road car, it's not quick, and you have to rev the absolute nuts off it to go anywhere. So it just revs to oblivion, but you don't actually feel like you're going any faster. It was really disappointing. But on the track, it's like a completely different car. That's where the rotary comes alive. So as a daily, they're pretty pants. So if you're looking for like a fast road car, I mean, it's probably not ideal. If you're looking for a track car so you can beat on, bam, rusty, crusty jugglers. Now, remember, it is an NC underneath, so you've got the NC life issues. They don't seem to be, well, from my experience, they've never been that bad rusting, but maybe now they've caught up and they are crusty jugglers. I'm just going to treat it as an NC. Why would you buy one? Well, I mean, they look sick. The interiors in them are sick. The details, so they've got like little rotaries in the headrest and things like that. They've got I want to call them suicide doors. So you've got, I'll put a picture here. So they open outwards. They're pretty sick. With a diff in them, they drift really well. They handle really well because remember, it's an MX5 underneath. The rotary engines are cool regardless. It doesn't matter. So they're super cool. So it gets cool points for just being a rotary. So the scores for the RX-8. Reliability, 2 out of 5, mainly because if you don't look after them, they're terrible. I don't need to explain, it's an RX-8. Uniqueness, 3 out of 5. Now, I would have given it a higher score. It's a hard one because there's not that many of them on the road, or I don't see them anymore. There used to be quite a lot. I reckon they've all been killed off, probably during the scrappage scheme. Sex appeal, I've given this, well, I keep saying it's penny. 4 out of 5, because they are a pretty cool looking car. Like I say, the attention to detail and everything is really good. I really like them. Tunability, 2, it's a rotary. There's not a huge amount you can do to them. A lot of people back in the day used to rip them out and put an S14 engine in it. SR20. Yen, 3 out of 5. They are not expensive, but they're not cheap for what they are. That gives my good friend the RX-8 a score of 13 out of 25, which is putting it in bottom place at the moment. In number 4 was Nissan 350Z. So if you want to beat DK from Fast and Furious, this is the car for you. Released in 2000 and I'm just going to go like this, pretend I'm not reading the laptop. 2005 to 2009, they have a 3.5 litre V6 in them, which is pretty cool. They do have various incarnations of that 3 litre V6, 3.5 litre V6. For the sake of rounding up, 280, 277, 295, so 300, or a 315 horsepower engine, which is the later ones. Cool things about a 350Z. I love 350Zs. I'm well about a 350Z. So back in the day, before the Celica's went up in value, I was actually put mine up for sale because I really wanted an orange GT 350Z. I'm glad I didn't sell it, but I still really want one. 3.5 litre V6 is based on the Renault Aventine engine.
Very nice!
Which you probably know if you've watched Top Gear, they talk about it. It's not the same engine, it is based on it. That is a pretty quirky looking car if you don't know what one that is. Weaknesses with the 350Z are the interior. Now, I hate to say it, the interior is absolute wank. That is the biggest thing that puts me off having one. It's just grey plastic. It literally looks like you're sat in a Nissan Micra. The GT line is better. It has a better interior, but it's basically the same. There's no back seats, so it is very noisy because it's all open in the back. So there is a lot of tyre noise in the back. Hello. Oil burning issues with the engine, so keep an eye on the oil level. Differential, bushes, fail, uneven tyre wear in the States, apparently. I don't know if it's a thing over here. I've not really looked into it that big. Gearboxes. So the gearbox is is terrible. They have synchro issues, and then when you put big power through them, it blows the gearboxes up. But like 300 horsepower, bang, they're great. They sound the absolute tits. So you put an exhaust on it and an air filter, or one or the other, and they sound wicked. They're 300 horsepower from an NA. You can tune them. You can bolt loads of cool stuff onto them. You can turbo them. The stock block, I think, is like 400 horsepower. Donut did the 350s in high-low, which is a really good series if you want to go and watch that. Rust, it's a 2000s car. They're scabby underneath. They're not the worst cars. It's still a 2000s Nissan, so it is rusty. I'd say they're probably on par with the RX-8. They're not that bad, but they are starting to get a bit bad with the salty roads. Why would you want a 350Z? Well, why wouldn't you? They look sick. They sound sick. There's tons of stuff you can buy for them. It's rear-wheel drive. Stick a diff in it and you can drift it. Buy one. So, scores. Reliability, 4 out of 5. I mean, I'm being pretty generous, but if you don't turbo them, they're pretty reliable. The engines are pretty good. Uniqueness, I've put 3 out of 5. There is a lot of these around still, and they're usually wide arched, load of stickers. I would like a bone stock one, but they are probably gone a long time ago. I need some old man that's got one. It's just stored like an orange GT one in its garage. Sex appeal, 4 out of 5, because I think they're pretty sick. They sound wicked. I'm just going to keep saying it. They sound sick. Tunability, 4 out of 5. Could have easily been a 5, to be fair. They are loads of stuff for them. Loads of things. Yen, how much? Now, I've given it a 3 out of 5 because they are very strangely priced. So they're going to be at the top end of the budget. A good one's going to cost you probably £4,000 plus. You might be able to find one for like 3.5, but it's probably not going to be good unless it's from an auction. So you're looking at 4 plus. So they're well worth it, but they are expensive. Our last car, number 5, the Lexus IS200. Now, these came out in 1995 and they ran till 2005. And they have a 2-litre straight 6 in them, which is let me find the engine number. They have a 1G FE engine in them, making it a whopping 155 horsepower. Not hugely quick, but again, another cool looking car. So I've always liked the IS200. I went to my prom back in the day before it was like all Americanized in an IS200, probably because, man, it would have been a new car. They were built as a 3 Series competitor, so it was Toyota answer to the BMW 3 Series. The interior is super cool. So they've got like a Rolex designed clock in them. So the dash is really cool. I'll put a picture up here. They had an Alcantara interior as well on some of them. And other ones were like grey leather or something like that. I don't know. So the interior was super plush. It's actually really nice for like a 2000s car. It was really, really luxurious. Straight 6, really smooth straight 6. That's as nice as I'll be about it. So price wise, you're looking at anything between £500 for maybe a diesel one to like £3,500. So your sweet spot right in the middle there, probably like £2,000 for a good petrol, probably quite high mileage. You're looking at like 100k. Good IS200, but it's worth it. If you want something like a daily that's luxury and it's quick and it's got straight 6 in it and it's a little bit different, so you've not got a generic BMW that they've all got M badges on nowadays that mean absolutely nothing. IS200. So aftermarket wise, there's not a huge amount. They were more of a luxury car back in the day. There wasn't a huge amount. TID did quite a lot of stuff for it, like roll bars. They did a supercharger kit for it. There is people that are doing like 200 horsepower on a stock engine with the turbo kit. It is possible, but like I say, there's not a huge amount of people that do much with these cars. It's quite a rare one. I dropped the remote. Weaknesses of the IS200. So the first one, the big one, is the engine. A lot of people are probably going to shout at me for this, but the engine is pretty meh. It's not fast. It was designed as a luxury car, so I get it. It's a smooth, bulletproof straight 6. It's a really good straight 6, and you can get a lot of miles out of an engine. They are very reliable, but it's just a bit meh. It's nothing special. They are crusty jugglers underneath. It's a 2000 Toyota. They do get very crusty underneath, so check for rust. It's hard to find a manual one. A lot of them were autos because, like I say, they were for business guys, so a lot of them are autos. And a big issue with them is windscreens. The windscreens leak, so it lets water in down the bottom of the screen, then it gets in the electrics. You get a load of electrical issues with them. Rust, I've already said, they are crusty jugglers. Yeah, everywhere, nowhere in particular. The rears brought out, the seals, underside gets all scabby. So why would you want an IS200? Well, if you want a luxury car for cheap and you don't want a 3 Series, you don't want a German alternative, and you want something that's like luxurious, bulletproof, it's easy to work on. I mean, the engine bay is like, everything's just there. It's so easy to work on. IS200, you can drift them, you can use it as track car. Not many people really use them as track car. Mods wise, you can put a 2J or a 1J in it. You could put a beams in it. Buy one. And they look super cool. And they're quite rare. Let's not forget, this is where Lexus lights came from. So anyone that was had a car back in the 2000s will know what Lexus lights were. I had some on my Clio, 1.2 Lexus lights, big back box, 2 subs, neons. So scores, reliability, 5 out of 5. The engines are pretty much bulletproof. I mean, people do like 250,000 miles on them. Uniqueness, 4 out of 5, because not a lot of them around. They weren't very popular in the aftermarket world, so they weren't really snatched up. I reckon most of them probably got scrapped. Sex appeal, 2 out of 5. It's not a good looking car, really. It looks like a kid's drawn a car. Tunability, I mean, I've been pretty harsh, so I've given it a 2. There's not a huge amount out there, but you can do stuff. So if you wanted to put a 2J in it, a 1J or a beams, you can do it. There's loads of room. Or if you want turbo, you can. There's not really any tune as far as is, and there's not a lot of stuff available, so it's all going to be custom stuff. And yen, I mean, 3 out of 5, they're right in the middle of like the £5,000 budget. You could pick one up for £3,000, spend some money on it, and you'd have a real nice daily driver. So that gives it a final score of 16 out of 25, which puts it not last. So scores, we have 3 joint first places. We've got the MX5, the MR2, and the 350Z, all joint on first place. That means that the IS200 is in second, and unfortunately the RX8 is at the bottom. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. Hopefully it's entertained you for half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever the video is. Moving this week, so get a garage. There is cool stuff on the way now. I have a garage. I can actually do some work. It's been Christmas. Couldn't do anything over Christmas because it was snowing, it's cold, it's wet. I've been moving house, so I've been packing. Couldn't work outside. The Celica's not been driving. As you've seen, I've just put a battery in it. So that would now be movable. That's going in the garage. 2025, coming for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again probably next week. Okay, bye.